Yellow. Now, this is one of the things that makes changing so very difficult. It's one of the hardest things people encounter when they're trying to better themselves. When you work on your energy, when you work on yourself, what often happens is that your environment starts to resist against you. Think about it this way. Imagine your friends, your family, they have seen you a certain way for 10, maybe 20, who knows, maybe longer years. They've seen you a certain way for so many years, a very long time, and this, all of a sudden, when you start to improve how you feel, what is the natural reaction to that? Well, they're going to change how they have to interact with you. When you change your energy, when you change how you feel about yourself, when you change your behaviors, you change them too. And that's a very uncomfortable feeling. They've adapted to behaving a certain way for so very long that the moment you start getting better, the moment, even if it's positive, even if you're doing amazing for yourself, even if it's all positive, what's the response that typically happens when you start getting better? You start getting resistance. The world starts pushing back on you, saying, this isn't how you behave. We're not used to this. We adapted to behaving a certain way around you, treating you a certain way. Why are you doing this? I don't like this feeling. It's causing cognitive dissonance. It's also making me question whether or not I can change, and I really don't like that either. This is a very, very bad feeling. Go back to the way you are. Stay where you are. Go back into that box. Do not change. This can come in many forms. It can say, why are you working on that? Why are you doing that? You know, it can be subtle things, or it can even just be a joke, like, haha, why are you behaving like this? Like, you seem so silly. And it's all, in essence, trying to put you back into a box, not because they don't want the best for you. Of course they want the best for you. They want you to be happy in their mind, in their soul. They want you to be happy, but there's just so much discomfort associated with change. You know, when you change yourself, you know firsthand, if you are working on yourself, that change is a very painful, very high conflict process. It doesn't feel good. The battle you have with your mind in and of itself is a very uncomfortable feeling. And so the world pushing back on you, it's not that they don't want to see the best in you. It's that they themselves don't want to change. They don't want to change the behavior with you. They don't want to question their own internal belief structure that they've adapted to. But in you changing, in you becoming better, in you improving yourself, you're making them think, this isn't the person I know. This isn't the world I know. What do I know then? A person who changes themselves changes the world around them. And that is a very uncomfortable feeling for the world around them. They don't want to feel that feeling. This is why a lot of successful people are very lonely. You know, it's often a very lonely place at the top. Not even because those people don't want the best for you. Often, honestly, there are a lot of haters. There are a lot of people who don't want the best for you. Even people very close to you might not want the best for you, right? And that's a thing too. But even for people who are close to you, even for people who love you and want the best for you, it's often just a very uncomfortable feeling. Just being around someone they saw, you know, they grew up with, they were around for a long time, all of a sudden reach a level they're not at anymore. It creates this sense of status inequality within them. Because typically people don't think on first principles, they don't think about the work, they don't think about all the things you had to do. They think in compare and contrast on a very surface level. This is why Instagram makes people so insecure, right? When you're comparing yourself with all these people, you start to feel really bad about yourself. Even the most beautiful models on Instagram are insecure. There's just this constant compare and contrast narrative that isn't necessarily congruent with the truth of reality. It's very surface level. But that's another thing too. Anyone who's experienced some degree of great hardship to improve themselves, anyone who's invested a lot of time into growing themselves, they're rarely ever haters. A person on the same level will rarely ever hate unless they're competing with you, right? Unless it's competitive, and then it's a different narrative. But in the end, those who have a deeper understanding, those who understand the pain, even if they have a small taste in that, understanding is the path to love. Understanding is the path to love. Understanding is the path to love. But that is so very difficult. You know, when you're thinking about all these other things, when you're thinking about your own life, your own problems, your bills, your own demons, your own trauma, it's so hard to think with understanding, depth, to truly understand another human being from their shoes, to understand what they went through to get to where they were. The most talented people, all of the most remarkable, the most talented people, they have been subjected to the most suffering. Even if they're beautiful on the surface, even if they're a beautiful actor, all the best actors you know and love, they went through tremendous hardship. They went through tremendous suffering. Some of them may have been homeless for a long time. Some may have even questioned whether or not they're going to eat the next day, whether or not they were going to live. Maybe they were in abusive relationships like the man from Breaking Bad. The actor for Walter White, he realized through an abusive relationship, a very small woman who was tormenting him, he realized that a very small person could make his life miserable. Like he was on his bed thinking about ending it because it was just such a traumatic experience. But through that, he realized how powerful, how annoying, frustrating, difficult to deal with someone so small and frail could be. And that granted him the foundation to play Walter White. The greatest art is birthed from suffering. The greatest people are birthed from suffering. Regardless of what you think on the surface, this is always true. The greatest people are birthed from suffering. It is as Friedrich Nietzsche had said, there are no beautiful surfaces without terrible depths. And so, to understand your suffering when people are already dealing with their own, it's very hard to not think in a compare and contrast narrative from there. It's very hard to look from your shoes when their shoes are already so difficult to put on. So, don't hate people. Don't blame them. Just understand that if you are working on yourself, it will cause conflict, and that conflict is justified. It's normal. It's supposed to happen. It's very rare that it doesn't. Thus, with that said, don't hate the people who make that process difficult for you. Understand them. That the way they feel is actually a physical manifestation of your own light coming through. The fact you are changing, naturally, it should evoke chaos, and in doing so, let that reinforce that truly you are headed in the right direction. And over time, people will adapt. Of course, there will always be some people who are just with you for so long that just can't understand. They just can't adapt to who you become because they've put you in a certain box for so long, they never want to escape it. So if you encounter them, they'll always try to push you back down. They'll always try to rip you back to where you were because it's just too uncomfortable. And of course, again, this is why a lot of very successful people are often lonely. The top is a very lonely place. You have haters, you have toxic people, and you even have people who want the best for you, but the process of having to change themselves by virtue of just being around you, if they spend too much time with you, they themselves will have to change or come to that realization. It's way too painful. Questioning, why not me too? Those who can take inspiration from transformation, they will rise. Those who cannot, those who are bittered by it, will stay the same. And that's just life. And there's nothing to hate there. When you yourself understand, there's no need for resentment. For understanding, in and of itself, is the path to love. Until next time, peace.